We've all heard of Dishonored. A lot of us grew up going through the head-spinning world that was Metal Gear Solid, and maybe you're one of the few people that's played Mark of the Ninja. It shouldn't be controversial to say that the stealth genre is an incredibly niche genre in gaming, and it's not hard to see why. Stealth, more often than not, requires patience and timing as core aspects of it, usually through something like waiting for a guard to turn around so you can sneak by them, or scouring the level to try and find a secret passage to bypass the enemies altogether, and managing your very limited resources. Usually, the stealth games that succeed are the ones that downplay these aspects. Let's take Dishonored, for example. Now, I love these games. I have around 4 hours of content on my channel talking about my love for the series, but let's face it, if you're choosing to sneak through the games, then you are actively making them harder on yourself. There is nothing stopping you from being a murder machine, especially in the first game, and I genuinely believe that is what led to the first game's success. Most people do not have the patience to wait around for potentially several minutes or to try and backtrack their way through a level to find a better route. To a lot of people, it is just easier and more enjoyable to brute force your way to your goal. So it may come as a surprise to you when I say, unironically, I believe Styx Master of Shadows is a better stealth experience than any game in the Dishonored franchise. Hey guys, going to be a bit longer with this than usual, but if I remembered, I should have chapters, so feel free to skip. Recently, I lost my job, and so money is a bit tight. I'm not going to e-beg or anything of the sort, but if you could, it'd mean the world to me if you could like the video and consider subscribing. I don't expect my channel to blow up anytime soon, especially considering I'm talking about a very niche game in an extremely niche genre, but I would be so grateful for any help you could toss my way. And hey, if you happen to have an extra $1 to spare, maybe even consider becoming a member to the channel. We got some cool emotes. Alright, enough self-promotion, back to the video. Before you all dogpile me in the comments, please give me a chance to explain myself and why I hold this position. And in order to do that, let's go through the game and everything it has to offer. As the game starts off, before diving into anything, the very first thing you're gonna notice is that someone beat this game with the ugly stick. This isn't just a case of an older game looking out of date. Keep in mind, this game released in 2014, the same year we got games like Alien Isolation, PT, and Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Maybe that's not fair to Styx. After all, those were all massive AAA games with multiple millions of dollars behind their development, while this game was made by the much smaller French company of Cyanide, who before this only really made cycling games. What an interesting history. But more interesting is this little number titled Of Orcs and Men. I haven't actually played this game, but it should be noted this is technically the first game in the Styx cinematic universe. It is, however, extremely different from the 2 sequels that would follow it. While the game appeared to be a commercial and financial failure, it seems the devs really thought they hit something with the character, and so in 2014, we were introduced to Styx Master of Shadows. As for what is actually happening in the game, we open up to Styx monologuing about a substance known as amber, and while we don't know what this is or what it does yet, we can garner that it is important and our goblin friend is after the heart of the tree that produces it. Before we even get the chance to control the little green skin though, Styx ends up getting caught and captured. From there, we find our titular character in an interrogation with a man called Berryman with a younger man, Aaron. From what we can tell, it seems like tensions between elves and humans are rising, and Styx is fanning those flames. After that, we find ourselves walking up in a new, strange room in which can be assumed to be a flashback. Before moving on, let's take a moment to discuss the controls a bit. One thing I do like about this game is the quasi-parkour system it has. Namely, if you're hanging on one of these anchor plates and if there's another one nearby, you can aim Styx in that direction and he'll grab it immediately, assuming it's in reach. One thing to note though is that our little man has a much higher jump than you'd expect, often leading to times where I make a jump I just did not expect to make. One of the more interesting aspects of it to me is that you can poison the food or water you find in levels, and if a guard eats it, they die. But the kicker is that the game never tells you that you can do this. It's really odd because it's a super useful mechanic, especially considering the fact that if someone dies of poison, it doesn't even trigger an alarm. People just assume it was an accident. Speaking of, another mechanic I love is that the way you kill people actually affects how their death is perceived. If you drop a chandelier on someone's head, not only do you make a great distraction from the loud-ass chandelier dropping from the ceiling, but people will just assume the man underneath was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and no alarms are raised. Other than that, though, it's your usual stealth game affair. You can sneak up on people and kill them. Pressing the button does it quickly, but your victim makes a noise as they die, or you can hold the button down to do a muffled kill, making far less noise. Should be noted, however, there is no spare option. Either way you go, that man is dying. Not that it matters too much, however, unlike other games, there is no good or bad ending here. From there, you have some throwing daggers, able to carry 2 at a time, and if used on an enemy, instantly kills them silently. Of course, with all these corpses lying about, it wouldn't be smart to leave them out in the open for anyone to spot. Now, we could do the Dishonored classic, where we just pile everyone in a single room, but it's typically better to stuff the bodies in a conveniently placed wardrobe or trunk. Or, if you have some, you can drop acid on them to just delete the body from existence. Of course, what's any stealth game without some supernatural powers? Thankfully, for me, I do not need to go nearly as in depth for these as I normally do, as Styx only has 3 powers to speak of. The first power is pretty typical with Amber Vision. Remember Dark Vision from Dishonored? Yeah, basically just that. You use it and it highlights certain things for you. It's useful, but not the most exciting thing to talk about. From there, we have Invisibility. You probably don't need me to tell you why the ability to turn invisible is useful in any game, especially when that game has a stealth focus. You press the button, you can't be seen. 10 out of 10, super good, but I mean, what else can you say? For Styx's third and final power, it is by far his most unique and really helps him stand out from the rest of the stealth game protagonist. By channeling his inner King Piccolo, our little green men can actually give birth to another goblin, which we can fully control. Normally, you might think, how does having a second character help if we can only control one at a time? But our shadow clone has a lot of useful applications. Need a quick distraction? Throw out your clone and have the guards chase it far away from your destination, allowing you to slip by while they kill it. You can either pull levers for you that you are either A, incapable of reaching because it can slip through tiny holes that you're unable to, or B, pull levers that are too risky for you to attempt. Bunch of people patrolling around the lever, send in your clone and have him risk his life instead. If he actually does manage to succeed, you can then instantly kill him and it'll be as if he was never there. Of course, once you manage to retrieve your dagger, you are also technically capable of fighting. I say technically because you really want to avoid this. Styx, as a goblin, is the furthest thing from a powerhouse. In a one-on-one fight, you can probably eke out a win if you time your parries well enough, but if there is more than one enemy, which there usually is because they tend to call for backup, you can kiss your ass goodbye. The fighting in this game is clunky as all hell, and I believe that is to this game's benefit. I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but one of my biggest issues with Dishonored for a while now has been the fact that there really isn't a reason to sneak in that game other than just wanting to get the good ending. The reason you are hiding from the guards isn't because they're a threat, it's to protect them from you. Even if you choose to forego the super cool outsider powers, you are so much more powerful than anyone else in the game, it is comical. Compare that to Styx. Man's just a silly little goblin and much weaker than anyone else in the game. And that's what I love about him. I love that there is a reason for me to avoid the guards other than just, I want to be a good person. The guards are a genuine threat. They are an actual obstacle you need to avoid or find some way to eliminate. And that's what I want out of my stealth game. And it is the biggest reason why I believe this this game and the genre as a whole remains so niche. You have to be patient. Brute forcing your way through a problem is much more likely to end poorly than it is to get you what you want. I think that's enough on the controls for now, so let's actually talk about the game. After we retrieve our dagger and go into the next main area of the game, we're introduced to Amber and what it does. Remember those funky little powers I talked about earlier? Turns out Amber is what allows us to do those things. It's strange though, as this is something I will knock the game's narrative for, but we're really the only ones who can do this with Amber, despite everyone in the tower supposedly smuggling and using it under the table like some sort of drug. It's weird that we're the only ones who seemingly get any sort of power out of it. Not saying every guard should be able to summon shadow clones, but at least some of the guards being able to see through walls because of Amber or something would have been a really cool concept. From there, as we continue to sneak through the place, it's not too long before we hear from a man named Ozcan. Styx appears to have amnesia, but Ozcan appears to know us and lets us into his little hidey hole. From here, we're told about a much more permanent hideout in the sewers, but in order to get to it, we're going to need a pry bar. So we pickpocket our man on the inside and sneak past a few guards. We get our hands on the sewer pry bar and can slip away, completing the first mission of the game. Overall, a really solid opener that does a good job explaining the game mechanics and how it works. The level design felt fair and there was something I could do or another path I could take. And another thing I appreciate is that the resources are scarce and you can't hold many. For example, you might find 3 daggers throughout the level and you can only hold 2 at a time. This encourages you to try and conserve what you have and only use these resources when you deem absolutely necessary. Overall though, solid first level with a good level design and good entry to the game. Once you've gotten into the sewers, we can meet up with Ozcan where he'll explain our next mission. We gotta get to the archive so we can find some secret maps of the tower, and Ozcan knows a guy who might be able to help us out. We're also going to need a plan to get out of here once the job is done, so we go ahead and make plans to steal the timetables for the airships so we can get onto the next boat right out of here. While discussing both of these options though, Ozcan decides to ask us for a few favors. While we're out and about, he wants us to A, make a man disappear on the docks all quiet-like, then B, while we're in the library, there's apparently a secret hidden tome or something along those lines that Ozcan, a blind man, wants to get his hands on. To talk about this a bit, these are secondary quests we can do while out and about in the missions. Nothing extraordinary and they have 0 impact on the narrative. And because I forgot to mention it earlier, there is another secondary quest throughout the game to get these things called relics. I'll be real with you here, I did not collect a single one throughout the game. Wherever they are, these things are pretty damn hidden, or they're at least well off the beaten path. Now, why would you do any of these secondary quests? What do you get out of them? There's no money in the game, so Ozcan can't physically pay you for the work, and they do nothing for the overall narrative. Instead, what they do is give us skill points which can be used to upgrade various abilities. Things like allowing our clones to hide in chests and wardrobes as an insta-kill trap, or being able to stay permanently invisible so long as you don't move. There's some powerful stuff later on that makes these skills really worth getting, and if you'd like, you can even replay missions in order to get the secondary objectives you missed on your first go-around. I'll also state here that I did go for a full shadow playthrough, meaning I wanted to complete the entire game without ever setting off any alarms. This gives us a solid 20 skill points per level, which is a nice bonus, but to be honest, I do it anyway because, as is known by now, this is just how I enjoy playing my stealth games. There are other insignias to go for if that fits your fancy, such as collecting all the coins throughout the area, which I believe there are 10 of per area and 40 per mission. Or the speedrun challenge of get through as quickly as possible. I never tried it, but I believe you can go for these all separately and don't need to go through a mission achieving all of them at once for it to count. Probably. All prepared, we can head out to what is, in my opinion, the best looking level in the game. Don't get me wrong, the game still doesn't look good, but it's nice to see an area that isn't some dark, dank, underground passageway. At the Skydocks, once we've done enough exploring around, I do happen upon the man Ozcan asked us to handle, and wouldn't you know it, the man isn't wearing a hard hat. Now that's an OSHA violation if I've ever seen it. Thankfully, I have this here handbook and...
There we go. One troublemaker less.
And that's why these safety measures are in place, kids. So remember, always wear a hard hat. I don't know why I clapped. Once we toss this man's body over the side, we can go into the office and grab ourselves a handy dandy timetable. From there, dealing with a few more guards, we can finally meet up with our boy Hector. He informs us that the plans to the tower were hidden by the original designer and nobody has been able to find it. Hector does believe the plans are hidden somewhere in the library, though he himself has been unable to discover them. From here, he asks that we follow him to the place that he believes they'd be located, clearing out a few guards along the way so nobody spots him somewhere he's not supposed to be. Once we find ourselves in the main library, you might ask yourself, how the heck do I find those plans? And well, remember that statue that was in the room with Hector? You might have noticed the numbers there and, hey look, isn't that the exact same statue but bigger? Even if you didn't notice the numbers earlier, this is honestly a super easy puzzle to just guess. In fact, it makes me giggle at the fact that somehow nobody has stumbled upon the solution by accident. Gee whiz, when I pulled this lever, a flame spurts out, and if I pull this one, it goes away? What would happen if I pulled all these levers in a specific order? Come on, Berberus. At least hide the damn levers. Once you either remember the correct order or happen to guess it because it's really not that difficult, suddenly the walls will light up with detailed maps of every single floor in the tower. Quickly copying them down, we run through the library and begin to head back to the hideout with a new shortcut apparently revealed by the plans we've just stolen. So sneaking our way through the incinerator and dealing with a new enemy type of giant roaches who can't see but have exceptional hearing, we find ourselves back in the hideout with another job well done. That level was, again, probably my favorite from a visual standpoint. The lighting definitely helped make the game look a lot less drab, and it helps it stand out from the rest of the game, which is basically nothing but dark, dank stone hallways and rooms. And this even goes for the indoor areas. I'm a big fan of the library, even though it had a lot of weird hidey holes that realistically just shouldn't exist, because which of these fucking nerds are out here making cubbies out of books? Keep in mind, unlike a lot of stealth games, Styx is not trying to be an immersive sim. The devs were not concerned with making a world that felt lived in and breathed in. They were concerned with making levels that would be fun to explore and sneak around in. And honestly, I think it works. Yeah, it leads to some goofy moments, like the cubbies, or the fact that nobody managed to somehow stumble on the solution to a simple press 4 buttons in the right order puzzle. But I'd rather a game focus on being fun over being realistic any day of the week. And if you don't have the time, budget, or desire to try and make something realistic, it's okay to just focus on having fun. Before we start our next mission debrief, we find Styx back in the interrogation room with the governor, where we learn more about the goblin. It appears our little green friend is capable of hearing the thoughts of anyone who has ever drank any amount of amber in their life, and in a not so subtle way, Styx even points out that the elves are capable of the exact same thing, escalating tensions between the two races even further. More interesting though, Aaron, the governor's son, seems really quick to point out that nobody is smuggling amber because that's illegal, and nobody would ever do something that is illegal. Once that cutscene is over, we find ourselves back in the hideout, speaking with Ozcan. We let him know the next step of our plan is to get our hands on the key to the only bridge to the heart of the tree. The problem here is, the key is in the governor's apartment, one of the most highly guarded areas in the entire tower. Ozcan, thankfully, does think of a way to get us inside though. Every day, the governor gets a delivery of clean clothes, food, and documents delivered straight to his apartment. So the plan is simple. Find out where that delivery is being kept, slip inside, and be hand-delivered to the man's bedroom like a green pipe bomb. Also, while we're out and about, Ozcan once again asks if we could handle someone for him. But this time, instead of hiding the body, he'd like us to bring it back to the hideout for him. As I start the mission proper, I overhear one of the guards talk about having a hidden stash of amber that he plans to sell to a coworker of his, and for fun, decide to see if following him would actually net me anything. Sure enough, the guard does actually end up leading me to a secret stash, and as thanks for his donation to the cause, I convince him to take an extra long break because, after all, he truly has earned it. From there, it's a pretty standard level, just sneaking past guards, unlocking a door or two, and climbing on walls. Once we manage to get into the chest and get dragged away, we do overhear a pair of guards talking about how to get into the very same secret passage we need to get into. Turns out, it's the classic pull book off bookshelf and wall swings open trick. With that in mind, we head off towards the governor's bedroom. It should be noted that this level is the introduction to the night enemy. These guys are unique in that we can't kill them in the usual ways. They're far too armored to hurt with daggers or throwing knives, meaning the only way we can take them out is either via poison or some other indirect means. Oh hey, good find. Once we manage to find our way into the governor's personal bedchamber and into his secret sex dungeon, it's time for another puzzle. Again, it's simple. Just get on the symbol that matches the banner of that row. But I think it's more fun to think about the moments where you have to jump to get to the next symbol. And there are times where that is literally required. That means this geriatric, senile old man has to jump several feet every time he wants to enter his secret goon cave. And before you say it, no, I doubt he has a guard do it for him. From everything we've gathered, this room is a massive secret to everyone. Not even his son knows about it. It's so goofy, man. I love it. I love video games so much, dude. Once we manage to get past Peepaw's jumping puzzle, we can grab the key we came here for. More interestingly, though, are these pipes that apparently allow our dear governor to go full-on 1984 Big Brother and listen on the entirety of the tower from this room. And apparently, he's even been keeping notes on our man Ozcan. That in mind, we take what we've gathered and slip into the sewers back towards our hideout, grabbing some cargo along the way. Overall, another solid level, other than the part where I had to literally jump to solve a puzzle that is supposedly solved routinely by a geriatric. There wasn't a lot that stood out, but I enjoyed my time. The level design is solid. The small twist at the end with how plugged in Berryman actually is was interesting. And I like the challenge of needing to bring a body back to the hideout instead of just dropping it off somewhere. Back in the interrogation room, we see Styx having it out with the governor again. Berryman is in disbelief with what he's been told, especially since we were searched and no key was found. Suddenly, in a slight panic, the governor leaves the interrogation in the hands of his son so he can check to see if Styx's claims are actually true. Aaron, taking no chances, decides the best course of action is to simply blow up the bridge to the heart, preventing anyone, key or no key, from accessing it. And sorry to interrupt here, but while I think the voice acting in this game is overall fine, nothing groundbreaking or anything, but nothing that bad, this line delivery here is
curse you.
It's whack. It made me believe that, oh, he must not be that bothered by this turn of events. But no, we can see later on in the game, this is a genuine problem. So why did he deliver the line like this? I understand a small indie company, but guys, come on. It's okay to do a second take here when the delivery gives off the entirely wrong emotion. Anyhow, minor gripes aside, one thing to point out here is that Aaron, unlike his father, seems eager to start a conflict with the elves and is actively looking for Styx to provide him a reason to deal with them. One thing our goblin does let slip though is that he has one more ally for his plan to succeed, and currently he's locked away in cell 5. Flashing back to the hideout, we meet up with Ozcan and inform him about the spy system the governor has set up, and while he's not surprised about the fact Berryman is tracking him, in fact he's already a step ahead with a false trail to a fake hideout, what does catch him off guard is the system the governor has in place to listen in on the entirety of the tower. From there, we discuss our next job with the old man, informing him of our plans to bust out a friend in prison. Ozcan doesn't think whatever friend we have in there is still alive and in one piece, and even asks us who our friend that's locked in there is. Unfortunately, due to his headache, it seems like Styx can't remember who he wants to bust out, just that he has someone in there he needs to release. Also, for the secondary mission this time, Ozcan asks us to steal a bulb condenser and even goes out of his way to point out that it's extremely fragile and he won't pay for it if we bring it back broken. Originally, I thought this meant that if we took fall damage or something, the thing would break and we'd fail the side objective. But no, this means literally nothing. You just need to get the thing and you're good to go. It makes me wonder why even put this line in the game, but whatever. Anyhow, we need to break into prison to get our boy, or girl, whoever it is, out. As we delve into the level, this is where one of the game's biggest problems starts to reel its ugly head. You might notice it's the same level as earlier, like exactly the same. Sure, some of the guard placement might be different and our end goal is different, but it doesn't change the fact that we've already played through this. It's at this point the game really starts to reuse a ton of levels. I believe there's maybe 1 or 2 more unique zones throughout the game, and it's honestly tragic. Don't misunderstand, the level design was good when we first went through those areas, and they're still good now, but it's hard not to be disappointed, especially when the game is so short. It honestly just feels like padding more than anything, especially when it starts to be done so often. Regardless, we managed to make our way to the elevator and head down towards the prison. In here, we can see another new enemy, and this is something I will genuinely praise the game for. They are always throwing new enemies at you, and even if the level design is reused more often than it should be, it is genuinely always a pleasant surprise to see how often a new enemy appears to shake things up, even if these guys aren't going to do much for this particular playthrough. Inquisitors, as they're known, are basically just mages. If they catch you, they'll stun you with magic, but since I'm going for a shadow playthrough, if I'm ever caught by anything, I'm just loading a save. So this literally does not matter to me. A cool note though is that they're half armored, so like knights, throwing daggers does not work on them, since Styx goes for the neck when he throws those. But unlike knights, we can still sneak up on them and kill them the old-fashioned way. It does help them stand out a bit, and I genuinely really appreciate that. Deeper into the prison, we can come face to face with our very first orcs of the game. These aren't so much an enemy as they are just an instant death trap. If they catch you, you die. In fact, they are so not enemies that if you do actually anger one, it doesn't count against the shadow insignia, which is good because the first one is a complete bastard. Once we manage to get past that, we finally make it to our destination, and it's time to bust our friend out of prison. And well, I think it's best if I just let this moment play out for itself.
Hear you. Yes, I'm not far. I'm coming.
You should thank me, torturer. No one will speak inside your head ever again.
What's going on here? Right on time. Rakash.
Who are you, damn it? Why? Who were you expecting? You thought you were gonna free somebody better looking? My plan. I wanted my plan. I wanted. You simply carried out my orders. You don't even know who you were supposed to free, right? A friend, huh? You never had all the details.
You're...
I still can't stand seeing your idiotic mug vaguely resembling mine. As though I was looking at my reflection in a pool while I was pissing in it. Well, that's impossible! No! No fucking way! Yeah, I'm Styx. The real one. And you're nothing but a bad copy. Thanks for opening the door. You've been manipulating me from the start, jerking me around like a meat puppet. Damn! But that's over now. Fuck you and your bullshit. Now, it's time to die. Yeah, sure, go on, scream. Make me a nice little diversion. And now I have to catch up with Aaron. If he destroyed the bridge, there has to be another way to reach the heart of the tree. Styx.
Maybe it was obvious to some, and it was definitely really cool coming into this game knowing that twist and seeing all the hints to it throughout the game. But when I first played this game back in 2014, when I was a dumb 17-year-old kid, this actually caught me off guard. Even now, I still think it's really well executed. The entire time, it turned out we were just playing a clone of the original Styx. All those clones we summoned throughout the game to pull levers for us then die, that's all we were this entire time. When Styx would tell us to hurry up, that wasn't us thinking to ourselves, it was the original creator telling you telepathically what to do and what to think. Honestly, this reminds me a lot of the "would you kindly" twist from BioShock, where you don't think anything of the phrase until it gets completely recontextualized near the end of the game. It's such a cool moment, and I absolutely think this gives off the exact same vibes. From here, the story changes in a big way. Now, we're no longer concerned with the heart of the tree. Instead, we want to kill Styx. The original Styx. This might seem off at first, and honestly, it kind of is, but I see what the man is going for. As someone who just found out that he has literally never had a single thought of his own or his own free will, and that he was always just a puppet, makes a decision for the first time in the entirety of his life. Even if he could just run away and leave the original alone, he wants to be sure that whatever choice he makes from now on is his decision, and I think it's an interesting character choice. This even makes the cloning more interesting. As we traverse throughout the game, we can actually find more Styx clones now, and unlike the ones we make, his have thoughts and are actually capable of speech. I think this puts into perspective how powerful the original is compared to us. When we make a clone, it is an imperfect copy of an imperfect copy, so of course they're a lot less capable. But the one thing I do find odd is that our Styx never stops and considers, or even really addresses the fact that he is doing the exact same thing as the original, making clones with a single purpose, then killing them off the second they have outlived their usefulness. The most we get is a single conversation with another clone about this, but like, even then, our goblin just says he'd do the exact same thing as the original creator. I like the idea a lot. I just think this part of it was pretty undercooked. I get that Styx is a selfish character, and it stands to reason that a clone of his would also be selfish and uncaring, but this makes the whole revenge thing fall flat when our guy admits he'd do the exact same thing in the other person's shoes. Well, back to the actual game. Once we've managed to break our way out of the prison cell, it doesn't take long before we find the path of the original Styx's destruction. By killing just about every guard indiscriminately and not even bothering to attempt to hide his tracks, this puts every guard on alert, meaning they're going to be quicker to spot us and even more difficult to sneak past. Through some trials and tribulations, eventually we make our way back to the hideout and confront Ozcan. Turns out our man was in on it the entire time and knew about Styx using us to break him out. Once he figures out that we know exactly what he did, he begins cowering in the corner and begging for his life. Here, we could spare him by walking walking away. But this actually has no effect on the story or game if you choose to do this, and I am extremely disappointed by that. Once we've dealt with our former ally, we take a step out of the hideout and oh boy, it's a little crowded in here now, isn't it? Don't worry though, this has absolutely no consequences on the rest of the game. We can simply sneak out and nobody ever thinks to check on our hideout ever again. During an earlier cutscene, Styx, the original one, got the jump on Aaron and actually turned the tables and interrogated him. It's honestly brutal as hell, and I love it. But the important thing we learned from that interaction is that Corberus, the architect of the tower, is actually still alive and hidden it somewhere inside. Back in the present, we determined the best course of action is to get the architect before our evil counterpart gets to him and see if we can make it to the heart first. On our way out of the hideout, we catch a guard and manage to get him to spill the beans on where we can find the old geezer. He tells us Corberus can be found in the murals room, and with that, we bonk him and head on out. Manage to sneak past some horrid bugs. We find the well-positioned murals room, which is located through a crawlway near the ceiling. You know, where I'd put the entrance to all of my rooms. Turns out this totally not suspicious room filled with several bodies and bloodstains is actually a trap. Who could have guessed? Thankfully, we have our clones we can use and throw away with absolutely no moral quandaries attached to it. Furthermore, the people who trapped us do the classic,
"It could have been dangerous. A little bit more and it might have reached the viaduct. But it wasn't so clever in the end, was it?"
Well, we go to
the viaduct,
where we can, after tailing this guy here, finally meet the man who's been foreshadowed since the very beginning. The legendary architect who designed this ridiculous tower. Let's finally talk to the...
But Manfred, you know full well that my brain is unhinged.
Oh boy. Was this like... intentional? The game definitely doesn't have the best voice acting.
Go fuck yourself.
But at least the less than stellar acting I can chalk up to being background guards being done by a random programmer just to have someone talk. But this is a pretty important character, and I understand that
My brain is unhinged.
but this voice acting is bad? Look, I'm not a professional, but this doesn't come off as a man acting as a character with an addled mind. This sounds like they dragged some random guy off the street to read a script. I don't hate it. In fact, I thought it was genuinely hilarious, and honestly, stuff like this is why I love small indie games. There is a genuine charm to things like this that you miss out on with the polish of AAA games. But the good news is, we got here before Styx. Bad news...
Help! Alert!
Okay, after using a clone to handle all of that, we move on to a pretty neat subversion of the typical escort mission. Our goal is to get our new friend here to the hideout, but to make sure neither of us is ever spotted, so we have to go ahead of Corberus and essentially make sure the way is clear for him. You can do this by either killing the people that might spot him and sending him forward to the next spot, or if you time it well, I believe you don't actually need to kill anyone. You can just have him move and he'll go there. Compared to your usual escort mission, I'll take stuff like this any day of the week. This feels like a genuine challenge on the game's mechanics, not a challenge on my fucking patience. No stupid AI, no walking at the pace of a turtle that had its legs broken. If we're going to have an escort mission, developers, I beg you, have them like this. This is genuinely one of the best escort missions I've ever seen in any game. Once we get Corberus back to our hidey hole safe and sound, we're contacted by our old friend, the main man himself, OG Styx. Turns out he's not too happy about us taking Corberus away from him, but he is willing to come to an agreement. He says he'll give us our freedom if we can bring him the architect. We also get some backstories to Styx here. His father, on his 30th birthday, giving giving him a dagger and telling his son that he is his own man now, no longer beholden to his parents. More interestingly though, it wasn't a goblin we saw in the flashback, it was two full-grown orcs, with the newly full adult orc claiming that he must see the world tree and the power of its ember for himself. Of course, our Styx, the funny little man that he is, decides that instead of complying with the original, he'd rather just go and meet him alone in an attempt to kill him. As we move through the level, we run into these brand new enemies called the Doomed. Essentially just floating skulls that if they spot you, they'll run into you and explode. I swear, with these things' placement, it is nearly impossible to sneak by them without getting spotted. The good news is though, if they do spot you, it doesn't actually count as raising any alarms, so my shadow insignia isn't affected by this. Once we manage to sneak our way into Styx's lab, he seems disappointed, but not surprised by our decision to come alone. And, well, let me play you the conversation.
You're not making my job any easier. That's for sure. I'm done with being a tool. I only obey myself. Oh yeah? And you decided what? What's your secret goal? How can you know what you want if you don't know who you are? If you are in fact nobody. You've never lived anything. You didn't ask to be here. Me, I crossed 2 centuries of nightmares to reach Akanash. I lost everything. Forever. Now, since you're so worn out, why don't you let go? You're just a bunch of old memories that are overflowing, screaming to get out of your skull. You're good for nothing. Listen, you and me, we have one life between two. You got the past. Leave the future to me. It's a fair deal. Why are you so desperate to kill me, Rakash? Me, who brought you into existence. I want to kill you because, well, at least I know it was my idea. Oh, really? Well, I can't argue with that. And yet, I could almost have whispered it to you. I'm so tired after all these years. All these voices gnawing at my mind. I came here to finish it. So, asking you to kill me is almost a good idea. Assuming, of course, that you're able to, which isn't the case. Oh, you think so? Wait and see.
I love this character moment for Styx, both of them. I think it's a really great indicator of both of their motives, especially ours. More than anything, what the playable Styx wants is the ability to choose. The original Styx just wants things to be over one way or another. I'll go more into detail with it later, but this, on top of some later moments, does a damn fine job in showing how, while these characters are similar, that just because we're playing as a clone with many similar abilities to the original Styx, we really are two entirely different characters with two entirely different worldviews. From there, we're thrown into a, I guess, mini-boss is how I would describe this. It's an interesting encounter. The entire goal here is to sneak up on the original and stab him, with him frustratingly teleporting away each time after we try to strike him. Eventually, though, when he's decided he's had enough, he once again manages to effortlessly stab us in the back. But before he can deal the finishing blow, Styx feels the presence of an elf encroaching on the location and makes a dash for the exit. Overall, the level itself was enjoyable. Well, the final bit at the end there was really enjoyable. The level preceding it was just build up for the main event, really. But for a stealth game, I think having a boss fight like this is the way to go. My only real complaint complaint for it is that I wish it would have had more like the Mr. Freeze fight from Arkham City, where the boss would adapt to your previous strategies and you'd have to come up with new ones rather than just disappearing and stabbing the guy 4 times in a row. Moving on from there, thankfully, the second time of being literally stabbed in the back is even less lethal than the first time, as we wake up back in the hideout face to face with our very first elf. This guy is apparently the ambassador of the elves in the tower, and man, can I just say, I actually really like this interpretation of how elves look in fantasy. I don't know if it's just the ugly graphics or a genuine art choice, but this is the only time I've seen an elf in fantasy that I can recall that actually feels extremely alien to humans. Too often elves, in my experience, are just humans but more perfect. And while that interpretation works, especially in things like, you know, Baldur's Gate or Lord of the Rings or most other places that have elves, it's nice to have something like this for a change. These guys are tall, lanky, and genuinely creepy. As for what our friend here has to say, well, turns out Styx has managed to push the human and elf war tensions to near breaking point, something Aaron, the governor's son, is more than eager to get started. But the ambassador knows where evidence of Aaron's smuggling and tampering can be found, and if we were to show this to the governor, then we could prevent total war from breaking out. In exchange for helping the ambassador obtain this evidence, he promises to help us cut our connection off from the original Styx, making it impossible for him to control us or get into our mind, and most importantly, allowing our Styx to get in close and actually be able to kill the original. And of course, this is more than enough to convince our goblin to go through with it. As stated previously, the ambassador needs us to collect evidence on Aaron's smuggling deals, but he needs us to do it quickly as he has a meeting with the governor later today. So sneaking into the same archive we were in earlier, don't turn the maps back on. It turns out that pisses off all the guards in here now. Learned that the hard way. Anyhow, once you do manage to get all the 2 terabyte files Aaron had lying around the place, we need to meet up with the ambassador. He's never given a name as far as I'm aware. I apologize. And the important bit here is that we cannot be spotted, no matter what, or you automatically fail the mission. And unlike with Corporus, you can't kill the guards to sneak by easier. The reason as for why we can't be caught is if the guards were to see a small little green man, one that has in no small way insinuated that he is working for the elves, be near the ambassador right before a meeting between him and the governor, people might get suspicious. So using my amazing sneaking skills and the fact that there are ironically less guards this go around, we get ourselves into the meeting room with the ambassador with Aaron's 2 terabyte file, just in time for the elf to present it to the governor. Unfortunately, before the governor can inspect said files, suddenly Styx, the original, shows up and promptly deletes the governor before taking the flash drive for himself. Now this obviously looks very bad. The last the guard saw was the governor entering a room alone with the elf ambassador, and now the man is dead. This leaves us with 2 options. A, we can hang the elf out to dry, or B, we can cause a diversion, giving us both a chance to escape together. While I feel Styx would probably pick A because it's easier, I am a gamer and want to do as much optional stuff as I reasonably can, so I go ahead and decide to drop this giant ass chandelier in the middle of the apartment so Styx and the elf can ride a blimp on out of here. Once we manage to escape with our new BFF, or solo if you're a true goblin scumbag, we find ourselves out on the docks. At this point, the goal is to find Corporus before the original Styx can get to him. Unfortunately though, as we manage to find our man, it seems the other us got to him first, and In a surprising show of humanity, Styx actually comforts the dying Corberus. In his dying words, he tells us what he told the other us, that the hidden path to the heart of the tree is through the spy system the former governor had installed in his back office. And through a voice in our head, the original Styx actually admits that he didn't get anything out of the old architect, and it's thanks to us that he was able to learn anything useful from the addled old man. And this is where I must interject. Was the goal here to be a big gotcha moment? Because it really doesn't work. Styx, this plan is just plain stupid. What if we decided not to question Corberus and just let the bastard bleed out? What if he didn't give us the information? Maybe he's just that much of a genius bastard. He knew we would question the old man, but there's no way he could have guaranteed we get the information before he bled out. If this plan went wrong, which it easily could have, everything you've been working towards for years would have gone down the drain. It just feels clumsy. The man has been outsmarting us at every turn. There was no need to have this thrown in there too. With that out of the way, we managed to get ourselves back to the hideout, ending the mission. Also, side note, gonna throw this in here now. I won't really be talking about the levels anymore, as I've already talked about all of them at this point. Just now there is different guard placement. When something is introduced into a level, i.e. a new enemy, I will speak on that. Otherwise, it's all retreads at this point. So for the sake of brevity, this is going to be a plot summary for now, and I do apologize. Back in the hideout, we have a discussion with the ambassador. He tells us we need to hurry. Things are escalating quickly, and we can't let the original Styx get to it first. There's two issues we need to solve first, though. One, the humans have locked up the elves, and the ambassador asks that we free his kin. Two, Styx can still hear every thought we have and know our every move, so getting the jump on him would be impossible. Luckily, the solution to these problems are the same. The elves, as stated by Aaron during his "I'm the leader with my dad now dead" speech, says he has all of the elves locked up in the room with their incubators, and going into one of those is the cure to getting Styx and everyone else out of our head. The catch? The only key to the place is on Aaron's right-hand man, but luckily through some pickpocketing and careful timing, we're able to grab that key, sneak in, and bust the elves out of their makeshift prison, and they immediately thank us for this kindness by capturing us and throwing us in prison instead. Okay, so this does make a modicum of sense actually. So thanks to the Amber, the elves have the ability to at least somewhat see into the future. The ambassador believes that the original Styx is destined to destroy the world tree as a result of these visions, and why he has asked us to help take him down. But the other elves believe it's us that is destined to destroy the tree, so they lock us away. It does technically make sense until you question why they didn't just kill us. You might think, oh, elves, they don't like killing. No, see, these bodies weren't my doing. I'd have at least gone to the trouble of hiding them. This was the elves, buddy boy. If these guys are that concerned we'll blow up their precious tree, then why not just kill us where we stand? Dumb plot hole aside, they do throw us into the exact room we need to be in, and running to the very end of this hallway, we finally managed to crawl into one of the elf sacks? Climbing into one does, just as the ambassador said, stop anyone and everyone from talking to us in our heads, including the original Styx. With that done, we can sneak out and make our way towards the heart of the tree. On the way, we run into the final enemy the game has to offer, and, well, you probably already guessed it from the clip earlier, it is indeed the elves. The elves are easily the most difficult enemies to sneak around, unlike dumb, smelly humans who need to see with their eyes, or the gross bugs who can hear real good. Elves are capable of sensing your presence if you are within a certain radius of them, regardless of how hidden you think you are. Meaning, while invisibility does work from far away, it does nothing for you if you're close. Thankfully, like most elves in fiction, they are not the most populated race, and they are much more sparse than everyone else. Once we manage to get ourselves back to the governor governor's masturbatorium, which is now guarded by a few doomed for some reason. And diving into these pipes, we can finally confront the main goblin himself, currently prying the heart of the tree out, and for the very first time, he is genuinely surprised to see us. The egg sac worked, and Styx finally has zero control over us, and we decided for ourselves we're going to kill him because it's our decision. The very first decision the cloned Styx has ever made for himself. So even if it's a bad decision, it's our bad decision. So with the final fight seemingly here, the battle for the heart of the tree, we dive right in. And it's the worst boss fight I have ever seen. Oh my god. Point of advice, that last level, use as little amber as you possibly can. The main reason I have been so stingy with my resources was purely for this fight. I knew this was coming up, and attempting to do this fight legitimately is terrible. You need invisibility, and preferably to be able to do it multiple times. It consists of no hiding spots besides these 3 tree roots, clones that are constantly on the hunt, and no resources to help with either. So I hope you didn't fuck yourself before you got here, because whoo-wee. So for this fight, because I had the power-ups, I simply sat still while invisible so none of the clones could see me, and through much patience was eventually able to take out every single clone. It's not done yet though. Styx almost has the heart now. He can't let us get in the way, so he summons 3 more clones, but this time they're invisible. It's the exact same thing as before. Yeah, this is the final encounter the entire game was building up to. Meh. Well, once you finish off those clones, either through invisibility cheese or through the most frustrating fight of all time, Dealer's Choice, we confront our maker for the final time, getting our hands on the heart of the tree, the life's work of the original Styx, and we, before his very eyes, crush it into pieces. He's not happy about it, but before he gets the chance to tear us limb from limb, we, being the master of our own destiny, decide to go out on our terms, falling into the lake of amber. Instead of a painful death for us, we find instead hundreds, maybe even thousands of Styxes. Styxi come crawling out of the lake, all of them consuming the original, eating him alive. And of course, with the heart gone, the tower, as has been stated before, comes crashing down, just as the elves warned. It was indeed us that led to the demise of the World Tree. Awakening in the rubble, Styx, our Styx, wakes up seemingly with no memories of the past couple of days that have transpired. The only things he knows is his name, and that he is different from every other creature around him, even if on the surface they are quite literally exactly the same. From here on out, his story is truly entirely his own. While I'm not a fan of the final boss, I do love the ending and can't think of a better one for the story. Our main Styx, once the big twist was revealed, truly wanted nothing more than to be his own man. Goblin. He wanted the ability to choose his own destiny, and one of the things I loved about the final encounter was how the 2 different Styxes saw this form. Our main character saw it as a good thing. He, like most of my Twitter friends, likes being a goblin. He might not have the strength of an orc or the looks of a human, but he's quick and nimble, able to get into places that nobody else can. The original Styx, meanwhile, can't let go of his past, forever stuck clinging on to what he used to be, instead of trying to make the best out of what he is now. It's like our goblin said earlier.
We have one life between 2. You got the past. Leave the future to me. It's a fair deal.
I also love that this is canonically how goblins came to be in this fictional world. I actually think it's a really cool origin. In fact, you can tell throughout the game that goblins aren't a race, even before the reveal that Styx is a deformed orc, because not once do any guards ever say goblin or anything of the like. If they do manage to spot you, they simply call you a monster. So, do I really think this game is better than Dishonored? Dishonored? Yes and no. Is it a better game? I'd have a hard time convincing someone to play Styx over any of the Dishonored games. Those games have super cool powers, much more interesting stories, way better voice acting, and overall are going to be a better experience than Styx to the vast majority of people. However, where I think Styx excels over Dishonored is in the stealth department. I believe wholeheartedly that this game is a better stealth game than Dishonored. If you are specifically looking for a game where you must sneak past guards, not because you want a good score or because you want to be a good person, but rather because they're a genuine threat and obstacle. If you want a game that does genuinely demand you take the time to learn the patterns of said guards, and you want a game where you need to make the most out of your very limited resources, this is where I believe Styx is better than Dishonored. And as someone who genuinely loves the stealth genre and believes it to be criminally underrated, I want more games like this. Overall, this game is an underrated gem. Is it perfect? God, no. There are plenty of flaws. The graphics are butt ugly, even for the time. A lot of the sections can feel frustrating, and the reuse of levels can feel absolutely egregious at points. But for a company's first game into this genre, I think it's an excellent first attempt and well worth your time and money. And hey, it was successful enough to garner a sequel. I won't talk about it much here because, well, if this video, despite the odds, manages to do well, I'd like to give that game an entire video all on its own, since it absolutely deserves one. So if you want to see that in the future, please remember to subscribe. It'd really help out the channel, and you can watch more videos like this one, or even follow me on Twitch. I like to stream from time to time, so if you can't get enough of this beautiful mug, that's where you'll go to find more. That's all I have for you guys. So thank you for watching, and as always, have a wonderful night.